You know who travels a lot? Larry Kudlow of CNBC.
Yeah.
Let's ask him to chime in on this and whether the airlines need to do something about their the way they have been cramming us in like sardines lately, haven't they, Larry Kudlow?
I'm still getting over my stomach cramps from the meal.
On the plane?
On the plane.
But these days you don't even get a meal.
I came back from California and I have a lot of Pepto-Bismol.
All right, so you're going to stay agnostic on the reclining seats and knee defender devices.
I'm afraid so.
All right. Well, beyond that, I'd love to get you to chime in also on this latest revelation. Don't know if you saw it. It happened late yesterday afternoon. Judicial Watch, who have been doing the Lord's work here with regard to getting emails and documents from this White House and from the Treasury Department, they have now revealed that the Department of Justice has admitted that, oh, yeah, we could get Lois Lerner's emails. It's just too hard. But all that stuff about no backups and about broken hard drives, that was all a smokescreen, Larry Kudlow.
Yeah, I don't understand the story. I mean, somebody's lying here big time. I could take a guess, but I just don't understand the story. They either have them or they don't have them. And they either lost them or they didn't lose them. And it sure sounds to me like they didn't lose them, which is what a lot of us thought right at the beginning when this story broke many months ago. And now it's just a big cover-up. Isn't it just a big cover-up?
Right.
I mean, that's what it looks like to me. I hate to say that, but that's just all this is.
And
you can't believe a word anybody's saying.
And, Larry, the White House keeps saying, well, we've given 67,000 emails already. Well, it's like Nixon saying, I gave you, 70 hours of audio. It's just that 16 minutes you can't have. Well, I mean, we don't want 27,000 or 67,000 emails. We want the 5 emails that show that there was discussion about using the IRS as a weapon against conservative political groups.
The problem here, I mean, yes, of course, what you're saying is right, but the problem here is you cannot get a straight answer out of the Justice Department, and you can't get a straight answer out of the IRS. And I just think that that's an incredible thing that's going on. Now, whether this resonates nationally, I mean, this is the last week of August. A lot of people are away, including myself. I don't know. I'm trying to follow this story. But somebody is lying here. There's no two ways about it. They're just lying.
There's a big deal that's been announced this morning. Excuse me, I'm coming back from a little bit of laryngitis. A big deal being announced this morning that has to do with Burger King buying Tim Hortons, this coffee chain in Canada, for $11 billion. The deal apparently has been struck. I'm reading conflicting reports this morning about whether or not they're going to move the headquarters for all of this to Canada, or, as Patrice told us, apparently they're going to let Hortons stay in Canada and let Burger King stay in America. I'm not sure which it's going to be, but this sounds like a pretty important merger.
Well, yeah, it's going to be very important. I thought you guys would get there. It doesn't matter. The U.S. operations can stay in the U.S., and by the way, they will continue to pay U.S. taxes on the sales, on all their sales and all their net profits, net revenue and profits. Where they make the final decision to locate is the key point. And I think they're going to go to Canada. And all I can say is, can you blame them? I mean, here's another example, and they have this linkage with Canada. Here's another example of, instead of trying to blast Burger King, instead of the class warfare, instead of going after corporations, why don't we fix the tax code? This is such a simple thing, and this is going to be politicized. My column last week, I just said what I gather from the White House and various reports. This is going to be a class warfare election against big banks like the Bank of America settlement, which I thought was ludicrous, against big corporations, and against the rich people that run them. That's what I understand. And the solution here is so clear. Canada has a 15% corporate tax rate. Did you know that?
Yeah.
The United States is 35. Is it a wonder that they're even thinking of that? No. Let me take that back. Is it a wonder that they haven't already moved?
Right. Exactly.
35 versus 15, I ask you. And they're right across the border. I mean, why is anybody shocked about it?
But what do you say to people like the president and people of his party who say that it is un-American and unpatriotic to build your company, make all this money in America, and then as soon as you don't like the tax rate, you move into another country and take all that money with you?
Well, look, again, they're going to pay taxes in the United States. Let me be very clear on that. They're going to pay taxes in the United States on U.S. sales. But what do I say to them? Reform the tax code. Every academic says that. Everybody in business says that. The Business Roundtable, I'm going down next week to moderate. I'm going to hear the same thing at the Business Roundtable. That's what you say to them. Why don't you move? Why don't you move on this easy reform? You have a bipartisan movement in Washington to change the corporate tax code. It's sort of like the one thing everybody seems to agree with. Not every detail, but it's the one big picture item everybody seems to agree with.
I mean, they talk about how it's un-American to send these corporations overseas and to set them up overseas. I think it's sort of un-American to overtax the corporations that give people jobs.
By 20 points.
Yeah.
By 20 points. And by the way, see, let me here analytically, almost all the studies show that a lower corporate tax rate benefits the worker and the wage earner. 70% of the excess goes back to the worker. Corporations are tax collectors. They are not taxpayers. All they do is pass the cost of the tax on to the worker and to the consumer in the form of higher prices. This has been proven over and over again by many, many studies by Republicans and Democrats and you name it. And the White House here, I'm absolutely convinced on this point, the White House wants a class warfare election this fall. They're very scared. They got nothing. The polls look lousy. This is where they're going to go. This is where they're going to go.
All right, Larry Kudlow, always good to have you. Larry Kudlow, of course, the senior contributor at CNBC and host of The Larry Kudlow Show right here on WMAL.
Saturday, 7 p.m.
7 p.m. Thanks, Larry.